Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. Welcome, everyone. Our Women Making History podcast is all about celebrating women of the past, the present, and the future. And today's show, we do this every fourth Wednesday. We either have a group of guests, expert guests coming on talking about women in history or women of today. And, or the future, because, you know, we can see into the future as women. Or we have a special theme show on the Women Making History channel. And, today we're focusing on American women making history across America and around the world. And what is so cool is all of our guests are travel writers. We're going to close the show with travel writer and author Linda Ballou talking about Christine, known as Chris Tompkins. She is an American conservationist. She's done so much out in Patagonia. So she did some of that global work. But we're going to start off, we're going to go to Texas, because I think Texas has got to be really beautiful right now. Austin area, with all the blue bonnets. We got Barbara Redding back on the show, so you can keep up with Barbara at barbararedding.com. Welcome back, Barbara. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Yes, spring has sprung in Texas. Unfortunately, it's been a dry year so far, so we don't have the profusion of bluebonnets that we normally do, but they're still around, and we're hoping that we got some recent rain that will bring a good crop after all. Maybe a little later than usual, but it's lovely weather in Texas right now.
That's great. How are all those fires in the hill country that we were seeing, like Fredericksburg and everything? Have they died down?
Yes, they have.
Really sad.
Yes, there's no fires that I know of at the moment, and the weather, we did get some rain the last couple nights, and there's more forecast for tomorrow and the next day. So we're hopeful that. This will get us back into the positive rain totals, but it's been several years of pretty tough drought for us in Texas. So not good.
That's why you also need native plants as much as possible. I know you're going to be talking about a lady who is known for gardens and so much more. And two other women. You got three Texas women that you're going to be talking about. The Tres Amigas, right? I don't know if they've all met each other, but we should do that. We're also going to go over to the East. Right now we're in North Carolina, and Joe Clark is in South Carolina. And she's going to be talking about a World War II lady from North Carolina. And you can keep up with Joe. Go to haveglasswilltravel.com. Also, recipiestravelculture.com. And she's on Big Blend Radio every second Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time with her Joe Goes Everywhere podcast. So welcome back, Joe. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me back.
Now, I heard that you and Kathleen Walls, travel writer and author, who's also on the show, everyone, AmericanRoads.net and KatieWalls.com for her books. You guys were partying in Atlanta. Am I hearing that right?
Who blab?
I heard it through the grapevine. I heard all the way to North Carolina.
People are telling tales out of school.
Uh-huh.
Yes, we were in Hotlanta, and it was getting hot. And we had a lot of wind, and it was a lot of fun. We were there for a travel writers event. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of good food, a lot of good friends meeting up.
Very cool. Very cool. Katie, did you have fun?
Oh, yes. Made some really great contacts. And like Joe said, run into the old friends and made some new ones.
Ah, nice.
It went very smoothly.
So what is the percentage when you go to these events? I know, Barbara, you just came back from New York at an event like this, right? And of course, the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association that we all are connected with. It's how we met everyone, here on the show. IFTWA, they're having their conference coming up in October in Lafayette, Louisiana. I really want to be there.
Oh, yes.
I love that
Should
area. We're going to be in the Pacific Northwest, actually on our way from there to Texas. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But otherwise we would. These conferences, I find it very interesting because what I've noticed from the organizations is that it seems to me like the percentage of travel writers now are on like over 50% are women. Barbara, let's go with you in New York, and I want to go to each of you ladies too. What have you seen recently on that number, do you think? Just a guesstimate.
Yeah, I would say, like at IMM in New York, it was, it's hard to say exactly, but I would say definitely more than 50% and maybe as high as 70%. Now, again,
Wow.
not all travel writers go to, each of the various gatherings, but I think it is the industry is heavily dominated by women. Yay, women.
Katie, what do you
I
think,
would
Katie and
agree.
Joe?
I think so.
Yeah.
The last two that I've been at have been many more women. I'd say maybe as much as 80 to almost 90% women. IPW, which I'm going to be going to in Chicago, the last one I went to, that had a few more men, but that's such huge, and that's international, very international. So that makes a difference.
See,
But yes, I think very heavily into women.
Joe,
We're
would you say the
making our
same?
voices heard.
Well, but I bring this up because traditionally it was men doing the travel writing,
Hmm.
and then doing the Robin Leach, the life of the rich and famous. Does anybody remember that?
Yeah, I remember it.
Yes.
Joe, would you say it's also mostly women now?
Yeah, the ones that come to the conferences, at least, I would say, in the probably 90% at this last one. I've been trying to picture in my head the men that I know that were there as writers, and I can only come up with 4 or 5, and I would say there were probably 75 to 100 of us.
Hmm.
Wow. That's amazing. I think it's just really interesting the change. And I think blogging and social media and then the advent of the internet and women being able to do things from home and be able to, it's just mobility is better than what it
Hmm.
was. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Because you can travel when your kids are in class or, and then go do something, come back home, put them to bed, have a cocktail and write a story.
Right.
You
That's
know,
right. You
the way
got it.
things have changed and we're living longer and women can have more than one career, so, I think it's very, very cool. So I just wanted to bring that up because we are talking about women across America and around the world. And the three of you ladies definitely do your due diligence of travel writing and travel and letting people know what to see across America and around the world. As so does Linda Ballou, again, on at the end and is also an author. So we're going to get to these wonderful women. Kathleen, I think we should start with Susan B. Anthony. Tell us a little bit about her because I think we all know the name, but in August it gets she really becomes important. We have some holidays for her.
Right. We owe her everything. She's the one who got us our equality. She's the one who got us the right to vote. And she learned it the hard way. She started teaching. She was only 15 years old. And when she was teaching, she was being paid $2 a week. The men teachers were paid between 10 and 15. And that's what really began to making her realize, wait a minute, this isn't right. And she worked not only for women's equality, but for everyone's equality, black people as well. And one of the things that I love about her, she felt women should have the right to vote. So she decided, even though it wasn't legal, she was going to vote. So she got out. She apparently got the councilmen or the people that needed to be accepted, registered, and voted back in 1872 in the presidential election. And she voted for Grant. And she did it knowing she was going to get arrested, but she wanted that publicity. And she turned the arrest into her big PR. I mean, PR people could learn from her today. So a couple of weeks after the election, they knock on her door and they sent out this young deputy marshal because then they didn't quite know how to arrest women. It wasn't, we stayed home and were nice, meek, mild creatures. So she makes him wait down in a parlor while she goes upstairs and changes clothes. She comes down and he tells her that she needs to go to the courthouse and turn herself in. She says, oh no. If I were a man, what would you do? You handcuff me and take me down there. So I want to be treated just the same as a man. So she gets all this publicity. He has to handcuff her, and I'm sure he was pretty embarrassed. And the trial judge, of course, has an all-male jury when she goes, and he's decided she's guilty before the trial, and he doesn't even give them time to deliberate, and he fines her $100 plus court fees. And her statement was, "I'll never pay $1 of this unjust penalty." And to this day, it's still on the court records as being unpaid.
Wow.
So I think she was a pretty powerful woman, and she was willing to put herself on the line to get women's rights.
Now, wasn't there also later, or was she part of this, a National Women's Party that was started? I'm looking at it back in 1916.
She was part of that movement, but she died actually, I don't remember the exact date, but she died just about the same time.
1906.
You're right, when they passed the right to vote for women.
Oh, so she's from Rochester.
She's from Rochester, New York, and she was very close friends. In fact, we visited her home when we were up there.
That's what I was going to ask.
And kind of, you got a personal feeling for her. She lived, most of her life was with her sister. She never married. She devoted her whole life to fighting for women's rights. And her home is now obviously a museum where you can walk through, and you kind of get the feeling for it is the way it's decorated. Her dress, she has a dress there. A group of Mormon women sent her this black silk, beautiful black silk brocade, and she had that made into a dress, and that was one of her favorite things. And she would wear a red scarf that would make her stand out in a crowd. She wanted to, I mean, she knew the attention was going to get her in trouble, but she was going to use that trouble to further the movement. And without her, we probably still wouldn't be voting.
Well, and this is really interesting. And just to clarify, she lived in Rochester and died there, but she was born in Massachusetts, 1820.
Right.
But with her work and going to Rochester, being able to see everything, I mean, she had some, fellow women that stood with her on this, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton was one.
With the Bloomer, I don't remember her first name, Bloomer. The woman that, actually let us wear pants. I mean, where would we be if we had to wear dresses everywhere? Where would we be if we had to wear those corsets and be all laced up and, would not be very comfortable.
Well, that's how my Nana apparently, when she, Nancy's grandmother, when she was able to wear pants, that's how she turned around and hopped on a motorcycle, she was like one of the first women to get on a motorbike. And she also drove to Canada and back, and because her husband was too scared to do it, she did it. And this is back in the early 90s. Well, kind of something happened with us and her. She's awesome. She's like a hero in our family, but it's also this ties back to, I know you all went to Seneca Falls too, right? Last year, and talking about conferences, the IFTWA conference. So, she was also very, I think it was there where she started to really get her voice.
Well, that's where she met Cady Stanton. And so my trip there was to Seneca Falls. And so we went to the Women's Rights National Park. And so the two of them became kind of the twins of the early women's movement, and were really monumental in the difference that I think they made at that time, and continue to be respected by lots of other women who've made history since.
And they, like you were saying, they're also really good in regards to being abolitionists and looking at women's rights and human rights, social rights.
She worked very closely with Frederick Douglass. They had some disagreement where he felt that the one constitutional amendment that was getting passed didn't give the women a right to vote, but he felt it was a step. She felt, like we want to go all the way, But going back to the clothes, which is interesting, throughout history, if you think about it, women's clothes, men have kind of designed in their minds what they want us to be wearing, wanted us. Now I think we're pretty much free.
Corsets, they can take
it was
their
always designed to be restrictive.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see men wearing things that would have kept them from doing the things that we could do.
Oh man. It's really, when we think about it, it wasn't that long ago. This was 110 years ago, basically, right?
My mother was born in 2000, I'm sorry, 1906, 1909,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, 1909. And if you think about it, at that time,
Ooh.
she didn't dare cut her hair until the flapper movement came along. When she was a young woman,
Mm-hmm.
you had to leave your hair long, which should be a scandal.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, and also the women though. Okay, so this part I don't like, but I totally get why they did it. At that time, that's where the temperance movement was also being part of it. And of course, none of us want prohibition. I know Joe doesn't,
no, no,
have
for
less
sure.
will track.
I don't think any of us do today.
No, but it was really, when you think about why it was, temperance was a big deal because of the way men were acting to women
Right.
when they were drunk. I mean, you got
Mm-hmm. Yep.
the
Well,
drunk coming
that
home.
still happens today. But the
Really?
point being, in that time frame, the women we couldn't go out and just get a job and support ourselves. We couldn't walk away from a drunken husband like we can today. Today, believe me, I speak from experience. You have a husband and he's drunk all the time. You go to divorce court, you divorce him, you get out. You've got to take care of yourself after that. Those days, the ability of a woman, especially if she had children, to go out and take care of herself was impossible. So she was totally dependent on that guy and stuck with him, drunk or otherwise. So I can kind of see why they went for the temperance movement, but definitely no, don't agree with it.
Wow. Wow. I'm so glad you brought her up, because it's just, I think it's so important because we don't want to ever lose our voices as women or anyone,
Right.
and voting is so crucial, and people sometimes take it for granted
Mm-hmm.
about being able and having the right to vote. And, I lived in countries where women didn't have the right to vote for very long.
And
Um,
still
you,
don't.
yeah,
Yeah.
still don't. There's
Yes.
very
Yeah.
many countries like that. So, we have a system where we get to use our voices, and people are doing it, which is good. And, our rights are crucial. They're crucial, So, it's always so good to go back and see what women did to really pave the way, because I also want our younger generation of today to not take it for granted.
No, and so
And
many people today don't even know who she was.
right, I know it's nuts, but there's Susan B. Anthony Coyne, or but it's so true that having a right to work. Now we're still fighting for equal pay. We're still fighting for certain things. But it's been an uphill road, and sometimes a few steps go backwards every time you get a win. There's a step back. There always is somewhere. And then you have to sometimes go back for that win again, the same thing. You win something, then, maybe, whoever's in charge changes, and then it changes, and you have to start all over again. But you have to. And it's not just about us. It's always looking at, what about our future girls and women, so it's not just voting for us who are of age to, but also thinking about having the right to vote is about having that right also means that we have to really actually take part of what is going on in our country and in our
Mm-hmm.
neighborhoods and our communities. So I think there is a responsibility, not just, hey, we get to
Absolutely.
vote. Learn, read, get involved with your communities. I don't care if it's just your local HOA. Tell them you want pink walls, y'all. But anyway, just from the HOAs all the way to, nationally, I think it is so crucial that it's like part of that responsibility is to be responsible voters and to learn about something, speak up. And if you make a mistake, the beauty is we have that right, and go and try again, but try and learn as much as you can, which is not easy because we have information central, right? And then we have to discern what is correct. But
Mm-hmm.
to take those steps is really, really crucial. So I love that you brought her to the table, Katie, because I think it's just, again, it's an iconic woman that we've all heard the name, but don't really, we got to remember her and pay homage to her. So, and it's still Women's History Month, everyone. So, Joe, let's talk about your lady, because you've got a woman in the military. This is pretty cool. Tell us about Ivy Courtney.
Yeah. It's a good follow up to what we just talked about, the freedoms that we have. my woman and her brother and her husband were fighting for those freedoms in World War II. Ivy Courtney and her brother, Marcus Vincent Courtney, both served during World War II, as did her future husband. We'll talk about him in a minute. But Ivy Courtney was a code girl. And her brother, she had just graduated from Duke University in 1941 with a degree in math, which makes her outstanding in another way. And her brother was at Duke University, and in his junior year when war broke out, and he left the university and became a B-24 pilot. He was one of the 4,427 men who died on D-Day, June 6, 1944. They died so that freedom wouldn't. Ivy, also kind of unique. She was born the day after Christmas in Statesville, North Carolina. And in pre-war Charlotte, after she graduated with this math degree, the only job she could get in Charlotte was a telephone operator. But before she died, she revealed to her sons that she ended up in being placed in the engineering department at Southern Bell, the regional telephone network. And that probably happened when the men in that department were called up and sent to war, and the company figured out she had a degree that would fit her into that engineering department. But then when war broke out, she eventually volunteered for the Waves and was trained at Mount Holyoke College. She went to Washington, D.C. and served as a communications watch officer in the Navy. She became one of 10,000 code girls, the code breakers who decoded and translated enemy messages. And she later joked with her family that she knew where her husband was going before he did, because he was a gunnery officer on the USS Holton. Wow. And she, her family has donated one of her uniforms, and that uniform is in Bedford County, Virginia, at the D-Day Memorial. And that the D-Day Memorial, National D-Day Memorial in Bedford, has the world's most complete listing of the fallen on D-Day. And her brother Vince Courtney is listed on that wall. He and his crew of 9 went down on D-Day. And kind of touches my heart. 2 weeks after D-Day was the day she married Naval Lieutenant Commander William Stone, who also was serving. And Bill Stone later became a Virginia state senator, and they raised 3 sons in my hometown. And one of those sons is named Vince in honor of his uncle. But I can't help but wonder if that wedding may have been sped up because of D-Day. Because during the war, so many losses made people realize how short and uncertain life is.
I'm with you. That's, wow. So this is your backyard, people, your community.
Yes, the 3 boys went to high school where I did. And lived next door to a dear friend of mine whose mother was a nurse in World War II. And so she's a story for another program.
Wow. And, people like her, you've got to keep their torch going too, right? Yep. But nationally, there's these heroes all over our country and around the world, and
they're hidden.
And they're hidden. That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
They're hidden treasures, really.
Yep.
Thinking about what they did and how they, it's.
And they don't talk about it.
Yeah. That's the silent generation, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. So you've got to be proud of the women in your community.
You do. You have to ask questions.
Absolutely. And keep them, there. Did they have like a monument for her at all, or what you were saying earlier?
I think the only thing that I know of is a plaque and her uniform at the D-Day Memorial.
Okay.
And then, of course, her brother is on that plaque because he gave his life on D-Day.
Oh, wow. Wow. Mhm.
Yep.
Wow. That's a touching story, and what a strong woman. And I want to go over to Barbara, because one of the ladies she wants to talk about, you've got to think about, a woman in politics, right? So that's, you were talking about, Ivy's husband, but we're going to get into politics a little bit. Well, of course, we've got Lady Bird Johnson, of Texas, but that's a biggie. But Barbara Charlene Jordan, she's important to put out there because she's got some firsts in her life.
Right. Yeah. She was, and actually, I think all of these three women that I'm talking about are first, and they benefited from what happened before them. But they were, I think Lady Bird Johnson, again, wife of the president, but she did things on her own that have given her her own reputation as someone who changed things in the world and made them more beautiful with what she was doing with beautifying the highways, and
I remember that for her.
Yes. And so if you ever get to Austin, there's the Lady Bird Wildlife Center, which is, really dedicated to her and kind of serves as an example of the kind of work that she did in terms of spreading not just bluebonnets in Texas, but wildflowers across the country and into our national park. So she was pretty significant. The other person was Ann Richards, who was really the first female governor of Texas. And as we all know, unfortunately, there still aren't very many women who are governors in their own right. We did have one previous woman, but she was the wife of, and she kind of got, I think her husband got into some kind of political trouble and she ended up being the governor. But so Ann Richards was really the only really the first woman who stood on her own and was elected by the, people of Texas. Unfortunately, she lost her in re-election to George W. Bush, who went on to be president. So
yeah, I remember this now because now
yeah, she was kind of famous for her speech at the convention, the Democratic convention. As I said, as it turned out, Bush did win, but she had some kind of remarks that are long remembered. But the third person was, as you said, was Barbara Jordan, who was really the first Black person and Black woman who really achieved political status, by being elected to the U.S. Congress. And then she also served on the Watergate Committee. And so, everyone remembers her and her strong oratory skills that she brought to bear in that time. So I think they're all three really women who made a difference and did things that women had not done very often anywhere, let alone in Texas. And so it's just like to see more women stepping up in their behind them in their footsteps and having more of a role in our state and obviously national government.
Yeah, that's a huge deal. I think of like Sandra Day O'Connor in Arizona. For she did a lot for women. She stood up for women's rights. Right. Big time. So, and it's just, no matter, everybody's on different, parties or whatever, but, I'm in the party. I'm in the party of independence.
Which party shall we go to? Which party?
We're in the happy hour party.
Mine is that. Yeah, exactly. It's a lot better. But it's interesting to see the women, no matter what political affiliation they're in, stand up for women's rights, in the beginning times. Now it's a little different. But it's interesting to see that, Especially when you think about Texas and the South, right? It's kind of like people don't expect it, but that's not necessarily what's true all the time. So I think that's the thing. I mean, we're still trying to get women up there even more. And we just, we've got to do something. We got to keep pushing women out there.
We
Obviously,
just keep trying.
Qualified
Keep
candidates.
trying, right. I think
Qualified,
that's true.
obviously, we don't want tokens, but did I say that word? It's probably politically incorrect. I'll get into trouble for it. But it's my party and I'll say it if I want to. But I think, Austin is really interesting, Barbara, it's a capital city, very, very diverse. And it's just fascinating to me to see the amount of females like that had, political power and then did something with it.
Yeah.
I think all three of those women did good things with their political power, don't you think?
Oh yeah, I think they made a difference. Nationally, they had national stature, and having been, my visit to Seneca Falls, when I was there, it was when Kamala, was the nominee, and there was so much hope that a woman would finally get to be president, and it's something we still need to work on. For sure.
We can't give up. That's going to happen.
No, we can't give up. No, that's true.
We can't give up.
Katie.
Yeah, no matter what party, it's like, come on, let's go.
And Richards, her tomb is mentioned. I did a graveyard tour in Austin several years ago, and the guy leading the tour pointed out her grave and talked about her, Ann Richards.
Yeah, she's in this kind of famous cemetery in Austin, and I have seen her grave too. So yeah, she has a lasting, I think, had a lasting impact locally and nationally too.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool. Well, women in politics, women who made political change, women who helped in World War II, and then we've got conservationists, Lady Bird Johnson. We've got one coming up on the next segment here, but ladies, this is amazing. This is amazing history, and we can't wait for next time. But I think that all the women you've talked about when we talk about this podcast, women making history, that, celebrating women of the past, the present, and the future. I think these three ladies of Austin or of Texas, I think, you look at, Ivy, and then you think about Susan B. Anthony. These women really encapsulate that because they've helped women today where we are, and then they're helping the future generations. So we just have to keep their spirit moving forward as we go through. And I do want to also say, talking about Ivy, Joe, we got to remember a lot of women serve in the military today. And
yes.
My gosh, some of them you can't, they put us to shame if we're going to go run stairs.
Yes, I have a cousin who's a Marine, so I know that well.
Oh man,
wow,
they're like,
that's
yeah,
great.
Yeah, she will put you down.
Yeah, and women that are police officers, I'm always thinking about, my gosh, you pull somebody over because they're, look like they're drunk driving, and next thing you know, they're going to have to take the dude down, and guys with adrenaline, and it's like, wow, some of those women, like some women, I'm like, I ain't ever messing with you, but it's, I think about women who serve in combat. It's just wow, and there's that story of that one lady, and I can't remember off the top of my head, that soldier who cut her hair off and made herself, she was like 14 years old or something, I think. And I don't know if it was a Spanish-American War.
Talking about the Civil War?
The Civil War, there were.
Is it the Civil
War?
War?
Several on both sides.
There were several that were disguised. And
right.
Several died in Gettysburg, and they discovered that they were women.
Yeah, I've read about that too.
Yeah.
There was one in, she's at the Vicksburg Cemetery, the monuments in Vicksburg. She was, I believe, in the Illinois. She passed for a man, and afterwards, she lived her whole life as a man until she was up in age. She's hit by a car. When the doctor examined her and found out she wasn't a man, they moved her from the old soldiers' home to a woman's home. And I always felt that was so sad because, she chose to be masculine. And that was her
Right.
choice, and she
Yep.
lived almost her whole life that way.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow. Good stuff. Well, thank you all for joining us on the show. I wonder who we're going to talk about next month. It's like good gossip. This is the
There's
best
so
kind
many
of gossip.
women in history we can talk about.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well,
Lots of
and
interesting
you-
women.
And you know the quote, well-behaved women rarely make
Never
history.
make history. Right. I've got that
True.
sticker on my back. My
I
car.
like that. I like that. I think, yeah, I
So
love
true.
that. It
So
is
true.
true. It is true. So in closing, I want to know where each of you are going next. Barbara, where's next for you?
Switzerland.
Yes.
Go
Cheese
on.
and chocolate. Yes.
Yes.
Cheese, chocolate.
Wow.
Cheese and chocolate. Can't wait.
Mm.
Riding the
Mm.
train too.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we can't wait. You're going to have to catch us up to speed when you get home.
Okay,
Joe?
will do.
Where's next for you? I know you just got
think-
home, but
I
you
know, but I think this weekend I'm headed to Florence, South Carolina. They have a food and wine festival that I just heard about. So, it's 90 miles. I may as well go check it out.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's
90
nice.
miles is nothing, man.
Right.
Yeah. Any excuse for a party.
Yeah, food and wine, I'm there.
And you're
Sign
doing
me
your
up.
job. You're doing your job. Barbara's getting
Take my
wine.
glass and go.
My gosh. All right. So where are you going, Katie? I mean, this is
I'm
food,
heading
wine,
for
chocolate.
Key West. I don't
Cool.
have my dates nailed down because they're going to help me with attractions, but they can't help me with lodgings. So I'm hoping for a miracle and trying to book myself into cabins at the Bahia Honda State Park. But one way or another, I'm going to be in Key West. And before that, I'm going to be 2 days in Punta Gorda, which I haven't been to in ages. They have a restaurant with the best fresh seafood you've ever tasted. They had blue crabs that were just gorgeous last time I was there. Huge, delicious.
Isn't that where they have the bioluminescence things going on? That's a big word. See, it's before 4 o'clock.
You haven't started drinking, is that
You'll
what
find
you're saying?
Yeah, I think Punta Gorda I might be in another, yeah, who knows.
There could
But that
be.
sounds like fun.
It's
Yeah,
been quite a while since I've been there.
Yeah,
And,
well-
of course, it's very seafood oriented, so that's one of the big things there.
Well, have fun. It sounds like all of you are going to have a really good time. We're on our way to Asheville, North Carolina, which we're excited about. We keep going back, it's a twirly-whirly, and we're going to be there
tell
for a
them
little
hi
bit.
at the Rose.
Line in the Rose, we hope to see them a little bit later. And actually, we will be there. We're going to do a live broadcast on April 1st, everyone, on April Fool's Day at 11 a.m. So it'll still be April Fool's Day, 11 a.m. Eastern time. So watch for that. We're just really trying to keep spreading the word that Asheville is open for everyone to come in. We have done so much recently in exploring pretty much a lot of the hurricane areas, the hurricane affected areas post Hurricane Helene. And so much is getting better. But tourism is crucial for these communities, whether it's, Virginia, Georgia, Tennessee. East Tennessee needs help. Some of Florida areas as well. And of course, North Carolina. So many little towns, you see amazing progress and you're just like, wow, how are they doing this? And then you go around the corner, you're like, oh, and it's heart sore and the people and the place. But please, if you, when you look at going on road trips and travel this year, sometimes go and stay in something, go in a place that needs that kind of recovery help. They want people to at least give them a smile and go in, buy a cup of coffee or something. At least it all counts, so people know that we care. It's the same as, in Maui. They want tourism back to get things back to normal, and our country's tourism is definitely shifting right now. So it's crucial that we travel and support each other, So that's the important thing, and do it responsibly and kindly. So thank you all so much. We're going to go off to Linda Ballou now, and you can keep up with Linda Ballou. She's a travel writer, author. Go to LindaBallouAuthor.com. Also LostAngelAdventures.com. She's on Big Blend Radio every third Wednesday with her show, Lost Angel Travel Adventures. So stay tuned for Linda. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Christine Tompkins is a woman to be reckoned with. She and her husband, Doug Tompkins, lived rough in Patagonia. They were both wealthy people. She was a CEO of a clothing company, and he was the founder of North Face, and they both were very well off, and he had $150 million that he decided to invest in Argentina and Chile to turn the land back to the wilds and to create national parks. So they were working together on doing this, but in 2015, Doug tragically died in a kayaking accident, and Christine stopped for a year to think about this and came back stronger than ever to create this vision of a national park system in the wonderful wilds of Patagonia and the Chilean Lake District. So they had purchased 763,000 acres of land from farmers that were not using it. And then she negotiated with the government of Chile, and they contributed 11 million acres of wilderness to what was slated to become the route of parks. So the plan is to have campgrounds and facilities and well-maintained trails and scenic drives, much like our wonderful national park system here in the United States. So when I was in Puerto Varas, which is the gateway to this region, there was a big celebration because they had just cut the ribbon on the Pumalan Park. So it is happening. She is carrying on with rewilding the region, restoring, replanting, and putting the animals back, the jaguar, the anteater, and she's just a phenomenal person. And she's worked together with private parties, to have this money. She's responsible for the transfer of 14.7 million acres of land to the Chilean and Argentine government to create 15 national parks in the process. So she doesn't stop there. She's working on salmon farms when the toxic effects of the marine ecosystem. She has spearheaded preserves along the coast of Chile, and I think this woman deserves a lot of credit and recognition, and you might even want to help the Tompkins Foundation by contributing. It's all private money that's going to the good.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.